Alright, The Graduate. I watched that a few hours ago. Uh, I normally don't watch movies from the 60s, just because normally if you go much earlier than the early 70s for me, I have a hard time staying interested in movies. Normally the plots just aren't as interesting to me, and the actors all have that transatlantic, I'm gonna get some coffee kind of accent a lot of the time, and it's just the way they're shot too, like really long scenes. I don't particularly like them, but The Graduate, uh, I actually was kind of interested in it because, I like watching movies that are like such cinematic classics. Like when I saw Casablanca, that was actually for an English 2 class in college, but I ended up liking it, and I ended up liking seeing all these like big movie cliche lines, all these things have been parodied like 100 times. I liked seeing the source, so I enjoyed that with The Graduate. Of course, I knew about the "You're trying to seduce me, Mrs. Robinson." So I saw that it was just uploaded on YouTube, so I watched the whole thing. And at first, I found it pretty interesting. I didn't think that the constant Simon and Garfunkel music was necessary. I mean, they even played like the same two songs in their entirety twice in the movie, which was pretty annoying to me. And I don't even really mind those songs, but I don't need to hear them twice in their entirety in the movie. Let's have some dialogue. I also like the Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World was in it. That was interesting, but I liked when Dustin Hoffman's character, like when he first comes back from college and everyone's just congratulating him like crazy, and it's annoying him. He's not really into it. I've been in situations like that. Like I didn't come back from a big like bachelor's degree from New York like he did, but or wherever he came from. But I've just been in situations where my family is being overly affirmative, and it's and friends too, like and they're not your friends. I actually like how the character didn't seem to really have any friends, like the entire movie. I don't think he had any friends, and I found that pretty interesting. It was just his family's like a social circle. It didn't seem like they were legitimate friends at all, and I think it was supposed to be like that. It was a very like anti-corporate America movie. I mean, it came out in 1967, so it was very much in the hippie movement. And part of the movie took place in San Francisco, so you know it had a lot of that like anti-corporate America, like anti-nuclear family overtones, which didn't really bother me, but no, it didn't bother me at all. I found it interesting, but yeah, at first I really liked his character, and I liked how Mrs. Robinson, the wife of his father's business partner that he's known since he was a child, just starts throwing herself at him. I just found that interesting, and I kind of like what a little bitch she is at the beginning. Oh, let me out, she gets naked, and yeah, it was interesting. And when they were having the affair, for some reason I found it kind of interesting. I guess it's because I was like identifying with this character or something, but there's just something interesting about this guy like clearly fucking up. Like, he wanted like nothing to do with her at first, but then like the next day he makes an arrangement to fuck her. I mean, he's still a guy, so that was pretty interesting. And even though it's not really the type of movie I like at all, I really don't like uh romantic movies. This movie was so old; it was done in a way that was a lot more interesting, and I found that initial plot, kind of interesting. This guy comes back from college; he doesn't have any friends, and the wife of his father's business partner, which is much older than him, wants to have sex with him, and just throws herself at him. And also, you see her naked for like just a second, but I mean, you see her naked, and she's pretty hot. Uh, so I mean, there's also that. And so yeah, the first half of the movie I found kind of interesting. Not like really entertaining, but it was holding my interest enough because I'll watch pretty much any movie as long as it's interesting enough. But then the second half of the movie it gets really shitty when the daughter of Mrs. Robinson, Elaine, I believe her name was, comes back and of course Mrs. Robinson's husband, I can't remember his name, Mr. Robinson wants him like, hey, why don't you take out my daughter? You know, you're a nice, successful guy. She just came back from Berkeley. Take her out. And Mrs. Robinson's like pissed and doesn't want him to do it, but he ends up doing it. And then like on that date, like 5 minutes into the date, they end up kissing. And then he's like, "I love you." And then suddenly he's like, "Now I must marry you." And he becomes such an uninteresting character. Like it instantly, the relationship with Elaine was so contrived and boring, and how he's just suddenly in love with her. And like, and now I must marry her. He goes from being this interesting like college student with no friends to just some faggot who's like obsessed with a girl that he met the day before. I mean, well, he had known her for a long time, but you know, that's not really shown in the movie. She doesn't show up till halfway into the movie, and then the rest of the movie is him like going to Berkeley, chasing after her, and then she has some other boyfriend, and then she's like, "I love you, but I can't." Also, like, yeah, there's also the big reveal in the middle there where he tells Elaine about how he'd been having sex with her mom, and honestly, that should turn any girl off like instantly. But then the dad finds out, which was kind of interesting, and she was like kind of playing cat and mouse with him, Elaine was, but then she basically seems like, okay, I like you, but then the dad finds out and takes her away, and then he finds out, she goes to get married to the other boyfriend she had, so then he starts chasing after her, and it was interesting, to me a little bit, because then it's the whole sequence from Wayne's World where he's trying to find his girlfriend, like where he's driving around, and he's like goes to the gas station, "Can I use your phone?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm running out of time, I gotta get before she gets married." It was kind of interesting because I didn't know, honestly, I didn't know that was a parody. I knew that the very end was a parody of a movie where Wayne's like banging on the glass. I knew the banging on the glass while a girl's getting married. I knew that was a parody of a movie. I didn't know what movie. So it was interesting to see that was a parody of The Graduate. And it was also just interesting to see that wasn't all Wayne's World, that whole thing was a parody. But now that makes me think Wayne's World is a little less interesting, knowing that the whole end of the movie was a parody. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting, even though I figured out, once I realized that I saw it was clearly Wayne's World there, I knew that he was going to end up like they just got married, just banging on the glass, and Elaine! So that was all pretty stupid and boring, but it was just interesting because I'm interested in movies, and I like seeing where the classic stuff comes from. But the whole second half of the movie, I was pretty fucking bored. I was really fucking uninterested with the Elaine, Dustin Hoffman, don't remember what his character's name was. Ben? Yeah, it was Ben. The Dustin Hoffman. Ben and Elaine's relationship, really boring. And Mrs. Robinson, which I found to be the most interesting character, well, maybe she's the most entertaining. She's really absent until, like, the very end. But yeah, then they run off together. I also thought it was pretty interesting that, like, as they're running away, Mrs. Robinson just starts slapping the shit out of Elaine for running off with Ben. That was interesting. And then they run and they get on some bus, which I saw, again, was another thing that's been parodying on sitcoms or whatever, where they're sitting together and they look happy, and then, they start to look sad and uncertain. And I thought that was kind of interesting because it didn't just have a flat-out happy ending, but honestly, it was all romantic and stupid and really unrealistic. A girl's not gonna be interested in you if you fucked her mom a bunch of times and she just got married. But overall, it was the first half was kind of interesting. It entertained me enough. It was interesting to see like all these classics, their origin. But overall, the movie was pretty boring and contrived, and I don't think it was that good.